And we're live. It is Wednesday evening. We are live from my basement, Joe's basement, the Arctic Circle with Daryl, and special guest from Flat Round and Spun, Trevor. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Once again, welcome.
Glad you could join us, Trevor. Thanks for being our guest this week.
Get the invite.
I wanted to have Trevor on. Trevor had to wrap up his live stream that he did with Steve and Marcia. Their Sunday Vinyl Confessions, it was called, correct?
Sunday night vinyl confession.
Sure.
Yes.
So thought I'd have you on, and you could drown your sorrows with us guys talking about other stuff. So
Hang out with the Canadian kids, eh?
Hey, well, I might have told the story before. There was at one point of almost 20 years ago, I was part-time Canadian because I was in Ontario so much for about a year and a half. So
you were in Detroit, weren't you?
Yeah, I was living in Detroit at the sort of suburbs, but in the general sense, Detroit. And I'd still drive truck, but at the time I was over the road, and I would go into Canada because there were trailers driven by guys that either didn't want to go into Canada or some that couldn't get into Canada. So I would go in. I'd go as far, starting in Detroit, go across the border, and mostly Ontario or around the Toronto area, and then I've gotten as far as going into Montreal.
That's a long haul from Detroit. That's like 9 hours.
Yeah, I did it in one sitting one time, like nonstop.
So you've been over the Freedom Bridge a couple of times then?
Yeah.
There's two parts about that drive that suck. The drive from Windsor, which is across from Detroit, till you get to London,
Right,
sucks because it's
flat. Boring.
It's
That's
straight.
boring.
It's the worst. And then the stretch from like Kingston to Montreal is equally boring. Oh,
right.
Horrible.
But I do want to go back to. Well, I never got to spend any time in Toronto because I'm in a big, huge truck.
Right.
So I'm hoping maybe someday, I could talk my wife into, hey, let's go to Toronto.
You absolutely should, because you got to go listen, honey. Rob's there, and we got to go record shopping.
Well, speaking of, now that we had the big VC get together this past July, it's gonna be in Buffalo next year.
So I've already been talking to Mike a couple times because Buffalo for me is an hour and 20 minutes away.
Right.
So when I found out he was moving, I called him. I'm like, dude, I'm very excited. I mean, I love Boston. I just couldn't make it last year,
right,
or this year, whatever it was. But I said, I'm super excited that you're moving to Buffalo because number one, obviously I'm a huge Jays fan, and our AAA team, the Bisons, are in Buffalo.
Oh, there you
go.
Now
I can go see Buffalo Bisons and maybe crash at Mike's, or maybe just hang out with Mike, whatever. I know, like, I'm inviting myself. I'm going to come crash it. I get to go see Mike. And then my hockey team, my beloved Montreal Canadiens, I'm not going to go to Montreal to see them. I'm sure as hell not going to go see them in Toronto, but I will go see them in Buffalo. So,
there you go.
Very excited.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to next year. Hopefully, out there. I think it's going to be bigger than last year.
If he does one in Buffalo, I 1,000% will be there.
Yeah, cool. Well, I look forward to it
because I'm probably the closest person to Buffalo.
Possibly. You're the closest person right now to Buffalo, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or embryonic.
Brian and I are about the same distance away.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, I'm thinking I might have to fly into Toronto because I have like a direct flight. I'm like, well, maybe I could get a ride with Brian.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll pay for the gas and the toll across, it's a bridge, isn't it? Or just
it's bridge. It's bridge.
I couldn't remember, but
yep.
Cool.
Good evening, Vagina. Welcome. And Music Talk with John. Welcome. Alex, very excited to see you in Buffalo. I am crazy excited. More importantly, Daryl better take the Polar Express down.
They may be messing up my train schedule altogether here. We just voted as a community on a new train schedule, which is ridiculous.
Uh-oh.
And they're all terrible schedules.
Speaking of Alex, here's the other half of the Beer and Vinyl Low Show. Emma,
Hey.
welcome. Welcome.
Very cool.
So how's the week been, guys? Anything new and exciting? Joe, what's up at the record store?
It's good. We were open on Saturday, which is not a normal thing for us, and I've explained that. But it was busy. It was crazy busy. It was actually really good. So
Good.
it was good. Personally, I'm kind of on the day-to-day list right now, but getting better as the week goes on. So
Oh, you were sick?
yeah, bad actually, but not sure if it was vid or what it was. But doing okay. I got a couple of quick things. I finished watching. I don't know how much, if any, desire you guys have the Tragically Hip documentary. Not even just to watch it, Rob. I know we've talked about it. No, because it's good. I liked it. I'm a fan. I don't know
I'm
if you
sure
have
it
to
is.
be a fan to enjoy it, but I know you like documentaries, kind of, right?
I do. Here's my thing, and it's such a shame because the thing I love more than anything else is Canadian music, right? That is probably 2/3 of my collection is Canadian music no one's heard of, and I don't do that to be obscure. I just love local music, right?
Right.
But the hip, I just can't do it. The songs are great. They're talented as hell. Gord was a genius. I just can't do his voice, and I just can't do it. And I hate that, but I can't do it.
So, well, okay. So I'm not trying to talk you into it, but based on the stipulations or the things that you just said, I think you should watch it because it is a lot about the albums and the music,
Okay.
and the lyrics and Canada and
Okay.
everything. So
All
for
right.
what that's worth, it's Gord-ish focused. It's gonna be. It's
Well, of course.
it's gonna be, right? But really, really good.
Yeah.
For those that are fans of, I highly recommend. And for those that aren't, like I said, I think it's 4 episodes. They're all about an hour. So if you watch the first one, they don't stray too far other than they just continue with the story. So if you like the way the first one goes, great, watch the rest. Or worst case scenario, you killed an hour of your life. But worth it, though.
So it's kind of like making of the albums kind of thing, or what?
It is, yeah. It obviously it starts back in the high school days and things like that, and how everybody got together. But then it starts off with the EP and finding the management, and
Interesting.
there was some stuff I didn't know. I mean, I'm not the die-hardest hip fan. I'm pretty good, but there's some stuff that I hadn't known, which is kind of cool. And then then it goes up to here, and it just goes through the albums, and eventually, ultimately, gets to, the final tour and the ultimate end. Unfortunately, but I thought very well done. It's by Gord's brother. He is a filmmaker, and it's lots of old footage, like high school gigs and bar gigs, and it's really good. I liked it. So again, for those that are going to see this, as a recommendation, if you're a fan, 100%. If you're not a fan, give one episode or part of an episode a shot, and maybe you'll like it for the storytelling. So,
all right, I'll give her a go.
Okay. The other thing, quick, is I saw some clips of the Eagles at the Sphere. Have any of you seen any of the clips of the Eagles at the Sphere and your thoughts?
Purposely look for them, and I watch quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks incredible.
Yes.
Yes.
But that might be as far as I go with it, though, is that it looks incredible.
Here's my concern with that. I mean, it's already been proven that Henley's been singing to a backing track now for the last couple tours.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I saw a great video of someone was down near the front, and they posted a video of Joe Walsh doing, I think it was "Life's Been Good to Me," and you could tell that's not like Joe singing, so that's great.
Yeah, it's Joe singing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because Joe can't sing the song the same way twice in a row anyway. So
exactly. Yeah.
But I just wonder, you pay that kind of money, is Henley going to phone it in? I don't know. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Now, obviously, it's phone audio, so that doesn't help. And maybe being there because it didn't sound. Here's the bad thing: is it didn't sound good enough for it to be a backing vocal.
Right.
It didn't sound good when Dawn was singing, but it also didn't sound good to me. I didn't watch it all. There's a full-blown 2-hour one up there on YouTube. I watched a little bit of because I thought, okay, well, let's see, is it bad sound? How does Vince Gill sound? Because Vince Gill should still sound good.
He
But
does.
Vince didn't sound good either. So maybe, I don't know. And Joe Walsh sounded like Joe Walsh, but you can't judge by that because
No.
that's just the way he is, right?
You're not there to hear Joe Walsh sing. You're here to watch Joe Walsh play guitar.
Play guitar, yeah. And yeah, the visuals were great. It starts off with, spoiler alert. Let everybody wait for a second. Oh, it starts off with Hotel California,
No.
which they always do. Yes. And the visuals for it are great. And I kind of skipped through and watched little bits and pieces. And yeah, the visuals are great and they do good stuff with the Sphere, as you would think. And I don't know what they're charging, but based on the sound that I heard, it would be a shame to go. And I've heard them, I love them, and I've heard them do it properly. So I don't know if I would tarnish and go to the last one, like the last time I saw the Eagles being this version, although the Sphere aspect would be kind of cool. So that's my two. Hey, let's talk about shit off the start things.
So you bring up the Sphere, which obviously makes everyone think of U2. Did you know that U2 is making a big announcement tomorrow?
I did not know that. No.
There's a countdown on their website, and it has some of the graphics from Atomic Bomb, because it's the 25th anniversary or 24 whatever anniversary. So I think tomorrow they're going to announce a super deluxe reissue of Atomic Bomb.
Cool.
Which I could get behind. I like that.
Yeah, I'd be all right with that. Yeah.
I like that album a lot. So,
Yeah.
A couple people here real quick. Darren, hey man, how you doing? Just obtained Chester Thompson's latest wake-up call and Joni Mitchell's Blue, which I've never heard before. Strange in my 57 years. Yeah, that kind of Richard S. that was on with us a couple weeks ago, he did a video about albums that he was late to the game on, and it made me, he talked about Springsteen's Nebraska. Same for me. It's like, how did it take me 40 years to hear that album? So it happens, man. I get it. Look at this. Brian.
Yeah.
Remember How to Grow By.
Yeah.
Brian and I almost met up on the weekend. It was the Toronto Record Show, and I was all set to go. And then my wife had other plans, and I felt really bad. I didn't want to drag my son to a record show because he doesn't give a crap. So I passed on the Toronto Record Show. Would have been nice because Brian was there. So was Low Noise Jason Skills as well. So
All right.
would have been nice to see those guys. But
There you go, Trev. You can hit him up for a ride now, officially. I don't know if he was here earlier, but yeah.
No, well, that was before the stream, but yeah, I was saying, Brian, that for next year for the Buffalo party, I might be flying into Toronto, so I might be hitting you
between Brian and I, we'll take care of you, man.
Right.
We'll take care of you. Chilled Pint, welcome.
Hey, Jill.
Welcome. Daryl, what's new and exciting in the last week? Anything?
It's been nothing too much going on here. I mean, nothing too music related. My wife went to a hockey meeting yesterday for my son. He's going to be in the U13 division again. Looks like there's going to be some travel.
There has to be. There's no other cities where you live, man.
Yeah.
We do play Moose Factory lots.
Well, I should
there
hope
are-
so. It's the only city for 100 miles.
And there's some teams that come up from up the coast actually when that road opens up. So we do get teams from up there, but there's a tournament that we go to every year in Timmins. He's actually got an exemption. So because he's not status, his team, because we live off reserve, actually has an exemption for non-status kids. So he's been playing in that tournament. And the last I'd heard that particular tournament at the end of February, it's called the Mush Cup. It brings in like $2 to $4 million to the city of Timmins in a 4-day span.
Wow.
Jeez. Yeah.
It's crazy how many people go to that tournament. So yeah, no, it's pretty much getting ready for the hockey season, I guess, and not next week, but the Thanksgiving week. So it's weird up here. So I start work a week or two earlier than most schools down south. We kind of talked about that, but it's because in October I get a week off. They call it a hunt break up here. So my father-in-law is actually making the trip up from Chatham.
Good Lord, that's a hell of a
drive
trek.
to Cochrane and then take the train. So
Jeez.
That's got to
some
be
company.
that's got to be a 2-day trip, no?
No, he leaves around 5 a.m. and he drives all the way straight to Cochrane. It's a full day for him.
Holy shit!
Wow.
then he gets on the train the next day, and that's a 5-hour train ride.
Good Lord. I don't know how you do it, man.
Well, once my debt's paid off, I think those days are slowly coming to an end.
My son, who's in grade 3, they're doing Canadian geography right now, so they're learning all their provinces and stuff. And every night as I'm going through his provinces, we hit on Ontario, and I look at James Bay and I go, God damn it, I can't believe Daryl lives that far north. We have raccoons getting in our garbage, and you have polar bears.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, we've had some really weird weather. Like last week, I mentioned it was like 30 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Hot. And then today, it's pouring rain and freezing cold. Just it's so weird how the temperature changes like that, and it's miserable rain too. It's not like pouring rain; it's that miserable drizzly
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like around here.
Yeah.
True.
Actually, I used to live in Windsor. I lived in Windsor for 7 years too, so I know that miserable stuff too.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I say I'm in the Seattle area, so it's just yeah. Today was one of those stereotypical Pacific Northwest days. And
Oh,
it was like that. It was like that here today too. We were walking over from school, dropping them off this morning, and it was just kind of in the air, and it kind of felt like. Not that Joe would know. I don't know if any of you guys know this. When you walk around Niagara Falls, because there's so much mist in the air, it's like it's always raining.
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's what it felt like. It was miserable. Ugh.
It was 32 degrees, hot and sunny here
Oh,
at the end of September in Saskatchewan. So
nice.
I don't know.
Nice. Let's see a few people here have to say. Darren says, I know what I mean about the hip grade songwriters, but Gord was the wrong guy. I don't know if he was the wrong guy to sing the songs. I mean, he had a stage presence, and he had a way of he could work a crowd. That's for sure. Reminds me of Goat Boy from SNL. Terrible to say, but I kind of like I get what you're saying because I don't like his voice at all. Incredible lyricist, great songwriter. Yeah. Vaginal says my neck of the woods. I'm not sure which one of us that refers to, but. Because I think Vaginal's in Southern Ontario somewhere.
I thought it came up. When Daryl was talking, but I'm not sure.
Fair enough. Sideways rain is the worst. All rain sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, I'll be driving to North Bay Record Show this weekend to sell part of my purging. 5 to 6 hour drive. Good Lord.
If I could only get out on the train, I'd go to that.
I hope you get rid of a lot of stuff because just hauling all that stuff back is going to be the worst.
Record Hound, if you're 5 to 6 hours to North Bay, where are you? You in Southern Ontario? Because the Guelph Record Show's this weekend. Just saying. I'll be there. And Jeff from Speaker's Corner will be there. As buyers, not sellers. We're getting rain, big winds. Listen, Mr. Florida.
Yeah, it's like category 4 though down there. No, right? I think it's actually getting kind of scary. They were talking about like 20-foot high swells and stuff. So yeah, hopefully, John. I'm not sure where exactly it's going to hit and where exactly John is, but yeah, be careful down there, man.
I think John is on like the Gulf Coast side. I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's coming from on the graphic. Anyway.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. What's been up with you this week, Trevor? Anything exciting?
Let's see. Well, it was the last episode of our stream, which had a pretty good turnout. Lots of positive comments. Which if anyone's watching, I will reply to those comments eventually. It's just been a wild work week. And then in 2 days. Friday night, I'm going to a concert by a group called Air, AIR. It's a French electronic duo.
They did that song, Kelly Reach the Stars or something, eh?
Yes. And the album that's from, Moon Safari, they're doing that album in its entirety. And it's like one of my top 10 albums of all time. So
Nice.
I'm going to be seeing him at a place called Benaroya Hall, which I've never been to. It's where Seattle Symphony Orchestra plays. So I'll feel quite out of place. So, hey, Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Hey, Richard.
So,
All right. Well, our topic this evening, suggested by Daryl, was underrated. So, underrated bands, underrated artists, underrated albums, however you guys want to interpret that. And I thought that's a great idea until it came time for me to pull some records. And Trevor and I were talking before we went live. It was a harder task than it initially seemed to be, right? Because, I mean, Trevor and I both had the same comment that we've got a lot of stuff that we think is underrated, but it's like local stuff, obscure stuff that no one else gives a shit about. So why would we talk about it? So
right.
it was a tough one. How'd you guys make out? Joe, Daryl, was it a challenge or pretty easy?
Yeah, usually I can think of 4 or 5 right off the top of my head. I had to put a little extra thought into it. I even asked my wife for one today. She gave me a good one, actually. But so yeah, a little different. And you're right. And some of these are still going to be arguably, underrated, arguably, because they're probably not. But in the grand scheme of things, maybe they are, or just, in my mind, what they are. So yeah, it was definitely I had to put a little more thought into it than normal. Thanks, Daryl. Jeez, man.
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
it's supposed to be easy.
I
like
think
to pull my
what
records.
happened is we had a great conversation. My first record's actually going to be the one that kind of made me think of this topic. But once I got down to it, same thing after I got through like 4 or 5. That's why I sent you guys an email, and I was like, are we just sticking to bands on this one? Are we moving away from this? Because I had a bit of a hard time. I think a lot of mine, I wouldn't say that these bands are unknown or these musicians are unknown for the most part, but I think that compared to some of the maybe groups that were around at the same time they might kind of go a little under the radar at times, I think, maybe.
Yep, I've got one of those on the top of the pile as well. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a toss-up, and it's going to be maybe us explaining our reasons why. Not that we have to explain our reasons why. Hey, did you go see 72 Seasons tour somewhere?
I got this at the pop-up shop.
Nice.
I waited in line for 5 hours.
Oh no, really? Yeah.
Well,
Sure.
I'd rather stay in line there for 5 hours and just hang out than stand in line at the merch booth at the stadium.
Right. Yeah.
So
And this stuff, right? Yeah.
I did one-stop shopping. I got the exclusive Seattle poster for my daughter. I got her a shirt that was available at the stadium, but I didn't want to wait in that line. And I got a shirt of the poster that I got her, and then I got this and a jacket. I spent way too much money there.
Yeah. What the hell? What was the theme? Quickly, sorry. Sidetrack, squirrel. What was the theme of the Seattle poster? Because in Minneapolis, it was a Viking. Was at least the Friday poster was, a skeleton Viking, but a Viking all the same.
Right. It was very. Let's see if I can pull it up super quickly here. Come on. Of course, I got a million photos. It's very Seahawks themed.
Was it? Yeah, that's cool.
Shoot, I know I had it here. Come on. Where is it?
Where I need the Jeopardy music.
So you got
Okay, cool.
and
Right
then you got the Space Needle right there.
Yeah. No, it was cool. Like I say, the Minnesota one was the big Viking ship, and then the skeleton Viking and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I think they kind of wrapped their heads around. I don't know if it was the team or what it was, but
well, it had to, because like in Chicago they had a bear ripping through the big M.
oh, nice, right on, good. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love the posters dedicated to the cities they're in and the work that goes into them. A guy could spend millions of dollars on that stuff if you wanted to.
Yeah, and the thing is, I wanted to get there early. I wanted to get that because they only made like 500 of these things,
Yeah.
or 590, and my daughter got 195. And they're hand numbered. So
Right on. Good.
yeah, it's a good time.
Awesome.
Well, let's do it this way. Daryl, since this was your idea, you kick it off first. Then we'll go to our guest of honor, and then Joe and I will fight it out after that.
All right, sounds good. All right, so last week on the show, those of you that were here, if you weren't, we had kind of a big discussion about one particular band that I think I showed from my collection, and we started talking about how they kind of like the drummer and the musician and all that kind of stuff, the main singer and all that. They're just kind of one of those bands that went. I wouldn't say nobody knows who they are, but they're just underrated. And we talked about the Cars. So this is kind of how I went with this. It got me thinking when Joe and you and I were talking, and I just think that I don't know the Cars. I mean, they have such a good selection of music. You might think and Drive, and I mean, you name it. I mean, this greatest hits compilation I have is. I know a lot of people don't like greatest hits compilations, but really, I mean, I have Candio in my collection, but I think they're underrated for reasons like this. Like the only thing I need is that greatest hits collection. I don't need all their albums, but I do think that they are a band that through the new wave stuff were overshadowed by other groups.
Yeah, and that's a great way of putting it. You're right, because I mean, we all know the Cars, but the Cars should have been, and I don't know in my mind what I think bigger, but the Cars should have been bigger. Now, I think a big part of it, maybe part of that was they didn't tour a whole lot. I don't think. I thought I read that somewhere, that they didn't do a lot of touring on their albums. They just sold their albums and they did some shows, but I don't remember, oh man, the Cars are going on a great North American tour. That certainly, if they did, it was never anywhere around here, but that doesn't really say anything. But so maybe that factored into it a little bit. But yeah, part of it was we talked about the fact that there's always Cars albums for sale in the store, and they shouldn't be, because they're such good albums and people should grab them and have them. But yeah, so I understand 100% where you're coming with on that one and agree with it.
Yeah. And I think Rick Ocasek is kind of he's a great singer, but I think he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. I mean, he did the solo career after with Motion, what is it, Emotion in Motion or whatever that was.
Yeah.
But like you said, I don't think he ever toured as a solo artist either.
No. I guess if you got a supermodel wife at home, you stay at home, I guess. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Maybe. Although Billy Joel still toured and he had a supermodel wife at home.
Darren says, too funny. Daryl always posts the coolest albums, bought the Cars' greatest hits sealed. Sounds incredible. I feel ELO falls into that category of it's best to get their greatest hits. Yeah, that could be a whole other topic some week of bands where all you need is the greatest hits. Talking about the two lead singers, Benjamin Orr and Rick Ocasek.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot they had Benjamin Orr there.
Yeah, he did a good chunk of their big hits.
Yeah.
Richard doesn't remember them touring much, so there you go. There you go. All right, Trevor, our guest of honor.
To on the coattails of that, I did see Rick Ocasek at a party I was at. Well, it was the record store that I worked for. It was they were having their 50th anniversary gala, and Rick Ocasek was there. I saw him and never went up to him at all, because the store I worked for, it was a small chain. It was like family there. Everyone you worked with was amazing people. So I was more intrigued with hanging out with my friends / family than meeting Rick Ocasek, if that says anything about who the people I work with. So
that says lots about the people that you work with. But yeah, no, that's cool. That's good.
So I'm going to do an underrated group. Speaking of coattails, these guys were, how how do you put it? Not coattails, but prodigies of Prince, part of the Purple Rock, as they say. That's the time. And this is their second album. What time is it? As you can see, a lot of people go for Ice Cream Castles because of Jungle Love and the Bird that were featured in Purple Rain. But for me, this album is just the best because this is what I discovered them on. You got, to me, classics like The Walk and Wild and Loose. Which, each of these songs actually have little tiny skits in the middle of them, which are absolutely hilarious. But yeah, it's just they still come around, or at least Morris Day and the Time. I don't know who is still original in the band anymore, but yeah, they come around every so often and hit the casinos and play their awesome funk rock.
Yeah, that would have been a great show, I bet. Like Morris, I mean, would have just been interesting and fun to watch, right?
Yeah. I caught him once at like one of those like street fair type things. And it was a good time,
Right on. Yeah, that's good.
Maureen says he has a little Richard look. He does.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Very much so.
That's why you needed the mirror on stage all the time. Make sure you look pretty.
That's right. Jerome.
Yeah. That's why there are no mirrors in my house.
I was just saying it's not a problem any of the four of us have. So.
No, well, yeah. Anyway,
I've really got to start wearing a hat. This light keeps like you guys are getting blinded by this bald head.
yeah.
I keep thinking I got to put a light here because there's too much of a shadow, but then it hides my ugly face. So maybe the shadow's a good thing. Makes me look mysterious.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the bald club on this.
Yes, exactly. Bald
Take your
glass.
hat off there, Joe.
Yeah.
Holy moly. Bunch of chrome domes.
I know it's such a unique thing of like, bald guys with glasses talking about records,
Yeah.
I'm the only one without glasses, but we all got, beard or stubble and bald heads, and there you go.
That's all the cool kids have beard and stubble and bald heads. I think
Maybe that's a stereotypical thing of the middle-aged record collector, I guess.
Yes.
I'm definitely good looking angelic there, Chilled Pint. I'm okay with that.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
His mic isn't picking up the choral angels.
Fair enough. Joe, you want to go next? I'll go last.
Yeah. Okay, sure. So again, yeah, this is going to kind of fall into the category of you guys will recognize the band, but in the pantheon of especially their age, I don't think that they are one that comes up quite often. They should. You think of hair metal, you think of Poison, you think of Motley Crue, you think of that, but I don't know how many people think of Cinderella.
Yeah.
And I think of Cinderella probably above all of those, actually. Now, they were a little later, and they were, they had big hair. You'd have to kind of lump them into the big hair category just because of the look, I suppose. But that's like lumping Aerosmith into a hair metal band where they really weren't. I think Poison, Crue, Dokken, those were, I guess if you looked up hair metal in the dictionary, I don't know that Cinderella would be, listed, but they probably would be. Anyway, with all of that said, I really like Cinderella. This is a fantastic album. The first one was a fantastic album, and Heartbreak Station was a fantastic album. They didn't have a lot, unfortunately, but then neither did Poison. Poison only had, 4 maybe, I think? I can't remember exactly. But when you mention great metal, hair, whatever, pop metal bands from the 80s and the 90s, Cinderella doesn't come up as much, I don't think, at least in my mind anyway, as they should. And so that's my first choice. And Kiefer was still doing some stuff a little while ago. I don't know that he is. I guess for me to say they're not a hair metal band is kind of ridiculous because that's a whole hell of a lot of hair. That is the opposite of us boys right there. So, but just great bluesy stuff. They kind of really filled a niche a little bit when Aerosmith was getting their act together, and then when the second generation of Aerosmith hit, they were kind of in that category a little bit. And again, they were kind of at the tail end, and they were a lot more bluesy, obviously, than stuff like, again, I don't mean to specify Poison, but Poison and Crew and that. They were similar, but not, and don't get mentioned as much as those guys do. So that's why I kind of categorize them as underrated. Plus, I really like them. So
Yeah, no, Cinderella is a great band. I think a lot of those bands, there's ones that actually my next one is going to fall similarly into that category that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think sometimes because they all had to have that epic ballad, right? And I think sometimes, like I'm all for those ballads, but I do think that there's some people that didn't like some of those bands just because of the ballad thing.
because you knew there was always going to be that one coming. But you know what? I listened to this album today, and it holds up. It's still a great album, and up to and including "Don't Know What You've Got." That's a great song. You know, it's a power ballad for sure. It's not a anthemic slow song. It's a power ballad for sure, but it's a well done one, and all the keyboards and the piano and stuff like that. It's just good. It's just a good album. So that's my first. Not really underrated, but in my mind, underrated a little bit.
So, Joe, do you have a Paramount Plus?
I don't actually. I have every other friggin' streaming service because that new one, is it out? And have you? I think it's out, but have you watched it?
The Nothing But a Good Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to probably just either do my 7-day subscription or bite the bullet, because there's probably enough cool stuff on Paramount Plus now. But I do want to see it. So
yeah, I mean, that's not really my style of stuff. I mean, I like some, but
yeah,
it gets into. I mean, the title itself is kind of deceiving because this on the surface it's all about the party, the sex, drugs, rock and roll, but it also gets into the other swing of the pendulum a whole lot too.
Yeah,
and it shows how real stuff got, and I would recommend it to anyone who has Paramount Plus and likes a good documentary. Like I said, it's not my favorable type of music, but I still enjoyed it a whole lot.
Good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. So I'll have to come up with something. So
right on.
You're up, Rob.
Sorry, I had to step away there. I have an 8-year-old who is not a happy camper this evening. Let's just put it that way. Has given his mother some trouble. So, get to bed. So I apologize. I wasn't trying to be antisocial, but he was having a freak out on my wife. So I apologize.
Got to do what you got to do, brother.
You got it. Okay. I said I have a ton of Canadian shit that nobody cares about. And that's true. But I'm going to show one because this person to me epitomizes underrated. And since there's 3 Canadians on this panel, you might care. But I'm an absolute massive fan of this guy. And I talk about him a lot. And no, I'm not showing that other band that Chance always laughs at me for when I mention them. I'm not going to show them because they're not underrated. They've done fine. But it's this guy, Adam Baldwin. You guys have heard me talk about him before.
Yep.
Man, I'm not exaggerating when I say that I think he is an undiscovered national treasure. Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, guitar player, plays guitar for another guy named Matt Mays, and then does some solo stuff on the side. This is his debut EP from, I don't know when this came out, 2013, self-titled. It's awesome. He's kind of got that Springsteen look there, and that's by design. Springsteen is his hero. This sounds a lot like Springsteen. It's really, really, really good. And then he put out this EP called No Rest for the Wicked. If that was really good, this is awesome. This is it moved away from the Springsteen thing, but it's still aggressive guitar rock and roll. It's fucking fantastic. And then he did this kind of 80s inspired album called No Telling When, precisely 1985. And yes, it's 80s inspired, but it's still guitar rock. And this guy has got so much talent, it's ridiculous. All of these are loud, aggressive rock songs. I saw him when he was touring for this. He opened for another guy named Alan Doyle, who was with Great Big Sea. And so he was the opener, and I saw him at a performing arts theater, 3,000 people or whatever. And he didn't have his band, it was just him. And that kind of music wouldn't have played to that audience. So he did his opening set acoustically. So he comes out on stage, and no one knew who the hell this guy was except for me, because I'm a super nerd. And he comes out and he sits on a stool with his acoustic guitar, and he just fucking blew everybody away. There's a song on here called Ratea, which is about a girl named Ratea Parsons, who was 16 years old, and she committed suicide because she was a victim of cyberbullying. Incredibly moving song. It's a rock song, but when he did it in this 3,000 seat theater, just him and an acoustic guitar, you could have heard a pin drop. People were just mesmerized by it. He writes incredible songs. He's a wicked musician, and he had that crowd eating out of the palm of his hand. And the last thing I'll say about him, he put out this, which is incredible. It's called Concertos and Serenades. Radical departure from his other stuff. This is purely a folk record. Think Gordon Lightfoot. These are songs. These are stories. These are stories about sort of the gritty underbelly of life in Nova Scotia. Some of them are true. Some of them are fictitious. But I have not heard, we have a pretty strong singer-songwriter tradition up here. I have not heard someone put stories to songs like this since Gordon Lightfoot. It's incredible. This guy, not a lot of folks know him. He's playing the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame induction this weekend because he's inducting Jim Cuddy and Greg Keeler. Tom Cochran's going to be there. So wickedly talented guy, singer-songwriter. If you like the Springsteen stuff, you'll like his first three stuff. If you kind of like Lightfoot, you'll like his last album. But I wish everybody knew about him because I think he's that bloody fantastic. So
Cool. Yeah, I just looked him up on Apple Music, and all that stuff that you just showed is on there. So I will definitely be checking it out.
The one thing that he did that was really cool, I should mention it, during the pandemic when we were all on lockdown, he got on YouTube every Friday night and he did a thing called the Cross Canada Chin Up. And, the idea is, chin up, make you feel better. And he would play for 2 hours every Friday night, and he did 28 of these things. And sometimes it would be at a piano, sometimes it would be an acoustic guitar, sometimes it would be an electric guitar, just him. And I mean, it was wonderful because it brought a lot of people together and it raised money for charity. But just amazing. In addition to this, he's got a bigger archive of live stuff than he actually does studio stuff. Man's amazing. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's see here. That's the last obscure Canadian one I'm going to bring up, by the way. But I had to lead with that because I don't think there's anyone that is more underrated than that guy.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That's what I like about the whole VC thing. You learn about stuff that you're not gonna find on the radio or through other mediums. And that's when I worked at the record store. There was a ton of stuff I learned about that I would have never have heard. Because you had all these different people playing what they like, and you discover so much stuff. So now I got the new to check out. Or new to me.
All right. John's telling everyone hit that like button. Yes, please, everybody hit that like button. Richard, checking out some Adam Baldwin. I think you'll like it, Richard. I think you will. Like I said, the last album, folky, but awesome. The other three, electric guitar rock. And then if you like his electric guitar rock stuff, check out the other band he plays. It's a guy named Matt Mays. He's amazing. Mm-hmm. Never heard of Only Baldwin. The only one I know is Alex. Yeah, nothing to do with the Baldwin family by any means. If I like do I like 80s progressive guitar? Yeah, I like a lot of guitar. So Trevor Rabins from Yes, Can't Look Away from 1989. Not heard it, but I will make a note of that. Cool. All right. Daryl, you got another one?
Yeah. So, Joe, you were just talking about the hair metal scene and all that with Cinderella. I know a couple weeks ago, Rob showed a different album by this band that I'm going to show right now. I think that they're underrated for the sole reason that really their fame, I think, came at the tail end of that hair metal stuff. This album brings me completely back to my high school years. I bought this on CD. I believe that this pressing that I have is an unofficial pressing of this. I don't think I've ever seen this in stores. This is the Hold Your Fire album by Firehouse.
All
I
right.
think that this is an underrated band, at least from that perspective. They were overshadowed by Motley Crue, GNR, Cinderella, all those bands. And this one's actually got the cool orange record, the Firehouse label on it. So I don't know where I found it. I think I bought it online from Halifax with free shipping. And I had to readjust my turntable on it. I thought it was the pressing that it was bad on the I thought the pressing was bad, but I didn't. The sound quality of this vinyl, because I don't know. I mean, I think some of these bands in the early '90s and stuff. I mean, their music. I don't know if it was necessarily meant for record, right? It was, I think, designed to be put on CD.
Yeah.
But the quality of this one was actually pretty decent, at least in my opinion. And I mean, yes, it has that rock ballad on it. It's got, what's that song? I can't even remember the name of it now. When I Look Into Your Eyes, that's the one.
Right.
But I mean, the title track, and Reach for the Sky, Rocked with You, Sleeping with You is one of those songs. Try to play with a girlfriend around. But I just think that I think their first two albums are really good. And I think that they kind of just went under the radar with some of those other 80s metal bands.
There were so many bands. Like their A&R men were just out there looking for anybody that had hair and could play a guitar. And I think they were giving them contracts, right? Trevor, I don't know.
Yeah,
You were
well, that gets included in that documentary. I was
going to say, if you look, I'm getting the glare here. If you look at the hair on those guys, right? Just that poofy half mullet.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Put them in some spandex, all the hair, give them some flying V guitars, put chicks in the video, and let's see if it sells. Because sometimes it did. At least it sold one album.
Look at these fellas. There you go.
Yeah.
And of course, like, I don't know if they're still making music, because I mean, they just lost their lead singer there, CJ Snare, earlier this year. So yeah, I think they're done, eh?
Yeah, probably.
It's funny, earlier tonight when my wife and I were chatting about the topic, she goes, "You're going to show Firehouse?" And I said, "Nah, I got some other stuff instead." So, but and I think when we talked about it previously, this has just been reissued. It's on this cool fire orange vinyl, so you can get this first time on vinyl in North America. The original pressing was done in Europe, and the vinyl is so thin it's almost like an acetate. My wife's got one of the original first pressing. She found it at a flea market for $5, which is kind of crazy, but great album. So I agree with you, Daryl. That's a good one, man.
Yeah,
for sure. Let's see here. Brian's checking out. Thanks for tuning in, man. Catch up with you soon. Yes, Firehouse had more than one. So that was their second album, right? And the self-titled was the first.
This one here, I think, is the second one. Yeah.
This one's 1990. So yeah,
I'm not sure when this one was.
I think
this one was 93, 92, maybe this one.
Maureen says Firehouse rock, just bad timing. If they would have come out in 87 or so, I think they would have been better. Yeah, I mean, it was a crowded space, right? Because as you mentioned, all those other bands of the same kind of,
Dokken and Warrant, and I mean, there were the bigger ones, right, which we've all mentioned, but there was a lot of not B level bands, but there was a lot of bands that had, like I say, that one big hit, and often it was the ballad or whatever. But
Right.
I mean, Mr. Big, Extreme with, you know, Porno Graffiti had a couple of big songs on it, but still, yeah, there was so much of that, and yeah, so that's another part I would imagine that is a big part of that documentary.
Hairspray companies made a fortune in the 80s. Yeah, they absolutely did.
Off of me too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No.
Brittany Fox, anybody?
Yeah.
That was actually, I think, a member or two were in the original version of Cinderella. If
That might have been, yeah. Yeah, and I think they started to all change around a little bit, right? I mean, there was like Randy Rhoads was in Quiet Riot, was in the first iteration of Quiet Riot, and then Ozzy found him, and then, you know, that changed. Like there was a lot of that. It seemed like there was a lot of that mixing around, and especially now too. I think if you see a lot of them, if there's one guy left from band A, there's one guy left from band B, they become, you know, the best version of band C or whatever, or they do the boat tour and they all play each other's songs. They just become the other person's band and someone else sings. But
right.
Okay, Trevor, you're up.
All right. Well, I'm going to do an underrated album from a big band, one that Joe and I are, you know, collectively like a whole lot. But it is the debut from Judas Priest, Rock-a-Rolla. A lot of people don't like it because they discovered the band, well, like myself, discovered him in the 80s. So you think that that is their sound. Then they go back a few albums and they still have, it's a bit more progressive sounding, their late 80s, but this is their debut from 74, and this sounds a bit different from everything else they ever did. I actually dig it a whole lot. There's a song on here called Run of the Mill, and I always say it is criminally underrated. It is epic, absolutely epic, and poignant in the lyrics. And it just recently got a 50th anniversary remix on it.
yeah,
And quite honestly, I think it sucks.
yeah, I haven't heard it.
They tried to make the sound updated, and it's just it's like they tried too hard on it, and it just, there was nothing wrong with this record. Remaster it, cool, but the remix was so unnecessary. But there's a lot of good just rock songs on there, very cool. I agree, Dan.
That's an apt description as well. Agreed.
All right, Joe, what you got?
Put up Chilled Pints comment, if you would, for me for a second,
one
because
here?
I wanted to talk about that, because this guy almost made my list. It was out for a second, then it got put away. But yeah, Charlie Sexton, who played a lot with a lot of other bands. He was, who the hell's guitar player was he? I should know this. I can't remember now.
Oh,
For God's sake. Anyway, I had Charlie Sexton as an option this afternoon, and I put it away. But great album. The one solo that he did, of course, there was Archangels. But who the hell was he get the guitar player for?
Dylan?
Are you Dylan? Yeah, there you go. He was in Dylan's touring band for a long time. Yeah, that's what it was.
I thought he did a Bowie thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he might have as well, but yeah, but Dylan is who I was not remembering. That's exactly who it was. So anyway, but yeah,
Talk
Charlie
about
Sexton,
an underrated guy, that Dylan fella.
yeah, but that's a great album. That Charlie Sexton album. It was going to be not necessarily because he only did maybe two. It was more going to be an album underrated than an artist because he did a lot of other things. But anyway, up next, because rockin' is my business and business is good, is the Four Horsemen. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with or not, but I think again, they fall into the category of a lot of people know them, but not a whole ton of people know them. But man, this album is unbelievably good. Just dirty, greasy, bluesy rock. Haggis or Kid Chaos or whatever the hell you call them is on here, and they kind of fell into the not quite the level of bad luck that Badfinger had, but people started to pass away and they just never really went anywhere. So not maybe underrated, as unfortunately just never had the opportunity to do more. But this is a great album. Rick Rubin produced it. And again, the Haggis or Kid Chaos or whatever you want to call him, I can't remember his real name for sure. He was in Zodiac Mindwarp for a bit. He toured with the Cult. He played bass with the Cult for a while live. I don't think he was ever on any album, but this is a really, really good Southern bluesy rock and roll greasy album, and I really, really like it. And I listened to it again this afternoon, and it was great. And this is the reissue, because the originals were and or are hard to come by. This is a reissue they did. I think they sold 500, and I wasn't in quite on time, but I think the first 100 people that bought it, you're actually thanked in the liner notes and things like that. But if you like, I don't know, if you like the Cult or you like any of that type of music, if you're watching this and have not heard of these guys, seek them out and give them a listen, because it's good stuff. And
yeah, it's very like Cult electric,
electric, right? Not love, but electric. Yeah,
I would also describe them as just like a very grittier version of Black Crowes.
Sure. Yeah,
Type stuff.
that's apt as well. Yeah, I'd go along with that. Yeah.
Imagine the Black Crowes in a biker bar.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. That's
I can
that's
get behind
good.
that. Sure.
Yeah. And it's a great album. There is a second album which you do not have, which was pretty good as well, because they didn't stray too far from the genre, and I kind of like that genre, as we'll see in a couple more albums here. But give the Four Horsemen a listen if you haven't, and if it's your style, I think you'll like the whole thing. If you like I said, listen to Rockin' Is My Business, and Rockin' Is My Business. Actually, you got to say it right. So,
Business.
my business. Yeah,
Business. Let's see here. I don't know where we are here. Richard wanted me to say what I think of Bob Dylan's vocals. My response is in the comments. I don't need to post it. Ursa Major had one album from 1972. Dick Wagner, who later joined Alice Cooper's band, was an incredible player. John just listened to the first 3 albums by Paramore. I would say they're underrated. Maureen saw Dylan and Willie Nelson. Dylan couldn't understand a word.
yeah.
Dylan would have been perfect for the Jays. Both have no pitch anymore. Amen, Dan. Don't get me going on baseball.
Yeah.
Man, there's only a few days left, but don't get me going. All right.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn now. All right. Here we go. Okay. I'm kind of gonna go Trevor's route. An album by a band that's kind of, the album is underrated within their discography. So I'm going to approach it this way. Everybody knows this album, Buckingham Nicks, right? Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, the album they did before they joined Fleetwood Mac. This is not underrated. This is goddamn fantastic. But one that a lot of folks may not know is Buckingham McVie. Which came out in 2017. So it's billed as a duet album, just like Buckingham Nicks was. But this is actually the last Fleetwood Mac album, because who's the backing band here? Well, it's these two, plus Mick Fleetwood and John McVie. The only one that's not on here is Stevie Nicks. So I call it the last Fleetwood Mac album, because the last Fleetwood Mac album, which was called Say You Will, was the 4 of them without Christine. So the 4 of them without Stevie Nicks, I would consider to be a Fleetwood Mac album. So, and originally there was plans for these songs to become a Fleetwood Mac album, but for various reasons, I guess tensions between Lindsey and Stevie, I don't know. But nevertheless, this is actually a very enjoyable record. It is exactly what you think it is. It sounds like a Fleetwood Mac album with no Stevie Nicks on it. So I think it's a great listen, and is it the perfect touchstone to the end of the storied recording career of that band? No. But it's better than, I mean, what they officially left us with was a digital-only EP called Fleetwood Mac EP. And it was actually really good. 4 tracks, but you could only get it digitally. And I'm like, that's kind of going out on a whimper. So at least there's this, which, kind of closes things out for me. I think it's a very good listen. If you like later Fleetwood Mac, if you like Say You Will, their last album, if you like Buckingham Nicks, give Buckingham McVie a try. I think it's a very good record.
Not familiar with that one. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, they toured for it. And when they toured, they didn't have John and Mick on the road with them. They had a different band. But the only 4 musicians on here is everybody except Stevie Nicks. So
I could be crazy. Not could be. I am. I believe I heard the other day that Stevie is coming out with a new album. I thought I heard that, and
that could be true.
Don't quote me on that, but you can look that up later and check that out because I thought I heard that. I do know, however, that Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass are 100% doing a new album, and Herb is 84.
Wow.
Don't care about that, but I'd be interested in a Stevie Nicks album.
Yeah.
So Rob, since you're out of at least this group, the authoritative person on Fleetwood Mac, that Buckingham Nicks album, is there a reason why that for some reason will never get reissued?
Oh yeah,
you would think that it would be a slam dunk.
It absolutely would be, and I would put money on the reason is Lindsay doesn't want Stevie to make any money off of it, and Stevie doesn't want Lindsay to make any money off of it. I would almost guarantee that's what it is.
Oh my God. How childish!
Well, she's the one that got him fired from Fleetwood Mac 5 or 6 or 10 years ago or whatever the hell it was now. So,
right.
But the thing is, the two of them got to get their heads out of their asses. The two of them would be nothing more than a one album failure out of Los Angeles without each other, and then finding Fleetwood Mac. Right? Like, put the shit aside. What the two of them do on stage is nothing short of magic.
Right.
Put your shit aside and let's play some music.
Yeah, I mean, who cares if they split it 50-50?
Yeah.
I mean, all of us would win in this situation.
Right?
Exactly.
It also depends who owns the publishing rights.
Okay.
They may not own the publishing rights.
Yeah.
But I think it's got to be them, because if it was some holding company or the record label and Stevie and Lindsay didn't have a say in it, you bet your ass that third party that owned it would put it out because they'd make a boatload of money.
Yeah, there'd be 4 variants in different colors and different covers and everything.
I'd buy every goddamn one of them.
Yeah, you would find it, at your big box stores. You'd have it at your record stores.
Yep.
And now but we got to try to, I mean, I don't even know how much, if you found it in the wild, obviously depending on condition. Well, Joe, I mean, you have a store. If that came in say a VG, what would be probably?
Yeah. I mean, without doing a little research, it's probably a 30, 40, 50 Canadian, I think, around there. Anyway, I think I've sold it. I think I did have a copy a while ago, and I had mine, so I didn't need, and I think I had it at 40-ish maybe. So I mean, they come up, but they're hen's teeth. They're not out there lots, but they do come up. But you're right, it is certainly one that should have come out for a record store day or something somewhere along the line. For all the weird shit they bring out on record store day, sometimes it's kind of a no-brainer, but they just haven't done it yet. So, but I think Rob's on the right track as far as, well, it's always about the money, and sometimes it's about who does not get the money as much as it is who gets the money, right?
I mean, not that, or is it? It's I can't find it here, but there's an album that came out record store day. The band does not own the rights to it at all.
Yeah,
and band favorite of mine, Cro-Mags, hardcore. They were putting out like statements like, don't buy this record on record store day. And I'm like, well, I can't buy an original for $150.
Yeah.
And They're made, they're pressed, sorry, the label owns it, you don't. Sorry about your lawyer situation.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Unfortunately, sure. If you guys came out and pressed some, I'd buy them from you. But if this is my only option,
right.
what are you gonna do? Right?
Yeah.
WIA, wasn't it WIA or no?
To answer Richard's question here, it came out in the US in 73, came out in Canada in 75.
Yeah.
So
On quality records.
correct.
At least mine is.
Yep. Chilled pint. Check out Chicken Shack. Damn right, check out Chicken Shack.
There you
Chicken
go.
Shack were fucking awesome. So Christine McVie, right there, in Chicken Shack, when she left, she met and married John McVie and then ultimately joined Fleetwood Mac. This is their album, 40 Blue Fingers, Freshly Packed and Ready to Serve. That's the OG. Then it came out, I think, on a record store day. My favorite Chicken Shack record was after she left. This awesome album called Imagination Lady. Great British blues. I friggin' love Chicken Shack, irregardless of their association with Fleetwood Mac. I love Chicken Shack. I wonder if Bob Welch played in any projects associated with Fleetwood Mac before he died. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Dan's agreeing with me. They had some excellent albums. Darren's saying, I've been watching the tribute band Rumors of Fleetwood Mac, which apparently Mick and John played with. They're great. The Alternates box set is incredible. Yes. I have all the alternative albums. They released them individually over Record Store Day for about 5 years, and then they reissued it as a box set. I've got all the original ones, and they are fantastic, especially the Rumors one is probably the best. But what they did is they did alternate Rumors, and they did alternate Fleetwood Mac, and they did alternate live. So it's like not studio outtakes, but early demos and alternate takes and stuff of the songs that are on those studio albums, and they're really, really fascinating.
Cool.
Lindsay looks like Jay Ferguson on the Buck Nicks cover. Yes.
Out on Thunder Island.
My dad had several 8-tracks in his car, Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. Where are we here? Nobody's making a dime except people selling copies of Buckingham Nicks. Yeah. Someday, maybe. You never know. Who knows? John says they picked up a decent copy last year. A good reissue would be nice. Yeah, you got to wonder if they did a reissue. Is there other stuff in the vault? Are there other songs that weren't released? Are there, even if they didn't, just remaster it and put it out again. I'd buy it just as plain as that. Why not? Record Store Day, too often weird and worthless shit. Yes, that's part of the reason I don't do much of Record Store Day anymore. So did the album always have collector's item on the cover? I can answer that quite easily. The Canadian version, I'm going to make myself large again. The Canadian version says collector's item right here. But this is a first press. The reason it's a collector's item is because this came out 2 years earlier in the U.S. Came out in 73 in the U.S. and did not have that on there. Wasn't released in Canada till 2 years later. It was such a big success in the States, and because of their increasing fame with Fleetwood Mac, it was a way that Quality tried to sell this in Canada by putting collector's item on the front. So there you go.
Correct.
Right, Joe, owner of a record store?
Yeah, that's right. And owner of the record. Yeah. So yeah, the Canadian versions, we're collector's item,
You should have said that, collector's item, eh?
Yeah.
Let's see here. As long as it's not Jimmy's Chicken Shack. Is that why the chicken crossed the road? Yes, absolutely. I had a lot of chicken wings for lunch today, and that was good. Goes to show the talent that was in Fleetwood Mac. Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, you could have a whole discussion about Fleetwood Mac, but that's a music collective, I think, not really a band, because there were so many different iterations of that band, and they were all fantastic, I think. Dan, it truly is. I played on piano now and then. Chatted with Jay once. Just posted a compliment that he actually responded to. Great guy, songwriter to The Office. Cool. One of my favorite songs by Fleetwood Mac, or I guess Lindsay, is That's All for Everyone. The harmonies and the melody is just way too good. From Tusk, yes. Tusk is a strange album, but I still really like it. Jay Ferguson made the albums that rock a lot better than the covers look. Yeah. Watch they'll do a UHQR of Bucking. I hope not. Don't even get me started on what I think about the stupid UHQRs. God damn. Of course, I should have figured that out. No problem, Dan. We're here to educate and entertain, and rarely do we do either of those. So,
and you know what, though? But if you ever do get a copy, of Buckingham Nicks, you should probably put it in a really good outer sleeve and get a really nice inner sleeve from. There's this place.
I would recommend Vinyl Storage Solutions. That's
yeah, that's
I
it.
would. I would. They make great sleeves, and you know what? If you're going to do that, use the promo code Northern 10. You'll save yourself 10%. I might be doing a Vinyl Storage Solutions video this week because I tried a couple of their products that I hadn't tried before. So they didn't pay me to try them. I actually I bought them with my commissions that I make off of making a stupid plug. But I tried their, getting off topic, of course, but I can do that because I'm the host. I was intrigued to try their box set sleeves because none of my box sets have sleeves on them. And I also tried their inner and outer sleeves for their 10 inches. So I got those in and I tried them, and I do a quick little video about what I thought of them. So time for a bathroom break. Listen, any time during this stream is a good time for a bathroom break. Let me tell you. That's the only plug, Dan, just this one.
Yes, stream with the streams.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Very nice.
We'll do this one and then we'll go around the horn again. In all my years of 10 years of collecting, I've never seen a Buckingham Nicks on Polydor here in Ontario. One of my grails. They pop up, Darren. I've seen them a couple times, a couple times a year. I see one. I'm sure I might even see one at the record show on Sunday. If I find one, I'll let you know.
Cool.
All right, let's go around the horn again, which means it's Darrell's turn.
All right, so I'm not 100% sure. This might start a little controversy here. So I'm pretty sure none of you guys have ever heard of a band by the name of Led Zeppelin.
Who?
No.
Never.
No.
So on a personal note, this was my dad's favorite of all their albums. I remember this when I was a kid. He used to play it all the time, but it's the one that I hear the least, I wouldn't say the most least favorable amounts or results about, but I would say that a lot of people just don't like this. I think it's because some people think that they went a little mainstream on this or whatever, but Houses of the Holy to me is an underrated Led Zeppelin album. I don't understand why people don't like it. Does have kind of a weird, creepy cover to it, but if you look at the track listing, I mean, and another thing about this album is one of their most hated songs is actually my favorite Led Zeppelin song, and that's "Do Your Maker." I don't know why people don't like it. I guess they just I have no idea. I just think it's an underrated album. I think it gets too compared to everything that came before it, and maybe some of the stuff that comes after it. But I mean, No Quarter. I mean, there's been cover versions of that by other bands. Dancing Days, Over the Hills and Far Away. Song remains the same. I mean, it's got a ton of hits. But I think it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle of the rest of the Led Zeppelin stuff. So I do think it's an underrated album, not an underrated band. I mean, be hard pressed to find too many people that would say that they didn't have a valid piece of music history, but it's probably their least favorable album, at least from what I hear.
See,
I like it. Great album.
They've got a couple like that. Sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to agree with Richard. I thought, I was going to guess too. I didn't know if it was going to be Presence or In Through the Outdoor. A lot of people put those at the bottom. I mean, we don't even count Coda because that doesn't.
No, Coda doesn't count. But In Through the Outdoor is a fantastic album. I love In Through the Outdoor.
Yeah, In Through the Outdoor is my favorite. Carousel Ambra is
Yeah,
my book.
it's a great album. But I think to Daryl's point is you put it up against 1, 2, and 3, and 4, obviously,
Right.
and then everything else is less than. But yeah, I mean, I could listen to In Through the Outdoor equally as I could any of those other ones, and Houses of the Holy as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, you're saying the Daryl, you were saying that it's Jamaica is
Yeah,
um
Jamaica.
I would have to say the Crunge is the worst song of that album. You know?
Yeah, the Crunge is at least that's the ending track of side one. You can just flip it over right after
Yeah.
Over the Hills. I guess this album, that song, The Crunge, could have gone on the whole topic we did a few weeks ago. Songs that just the one song on an album that's just bad.
You want to skip?
You
Yeah.
want to skip.
All right, I got a few comments here. Richard thought you were going to show presents. Music Sanctuary says the Fleetwood Mac alternative is still available. Warren Music Canada. Darren says the Rain song is the best.
Yes.
Rain says I agree. Zeppelin's my fave. Was in high school and had it on 8-track. And Richard says, I think Hoth is the best battle scene in Star Wars. I agree. Zeppelin was kind enough to make so many fantastic albums that it pains people to rank them. Yeah. Richard effing loves In Through the Outdoor.
There you go.
Yeah.
To Weird Joe, I love In Through the Outdoor. My uncle got it for me for Christmas in 79. Another +1 for In Through the Outdoor. Fool in the Rain has that Genesis misunderstanding, total hold the line, Joe Walsh, Rocky type of feel. Yeah.
Okay.
T for One Off Presents is so good that it's like another Since I've Been Loving You, maybe better. There you have it.
Other than Coda. Yeah.
There you
I
have
can't
it.
even think of a song off that album. Anyway, go ahead, Trevor.
Trevor, you're up.
All right. Now, it seems like the general public think that punk started in 1994 when Green Day brought out Dookie. And yes, that one kicked down the doors for him to be in mainstream. Now, I started listening to punk in probably about the mid 80s. And this album and this band was early 80s and quite notorious, but this is a band called Fear from LA. And as we were talking record store day, actually I got this time as that Cro-Mags album. They still are around. Well, it's just the lead singer, Lee Ving, clever name. You know, he's still out there and he's like in his 70s, still kicking it. But the thing is, and I'm going to ruffle feathers here, and this is something I've said many times before. My problem with punk rock nowadays is it's more of the pop punk, which I consider an oxymoron, because punk was never supposed to be popular. And like my wife, she just went and saw Green Day the other night, and people were asking me if I was going to, and I'm like, my punk rock ethos will not allow me to do that, because seeing punk rock in a stadium does not wrap in my mind. But the thing is, it's also disappeared in punk that these guys had in spades was Danger. Those, you go to a Fear show or a Black Flag show or a Circle Jerk show, there was a chance that you were going to be in pain at some point. And you know, this is just dripping in attitude, violence, drinking, swearing, everything that you would love as a teenager. So
Yeah.
So Fear, they only had probably about a half dozen records in their whole career, but yeah, they did one notorious performance on Saturday Night Live in '82. You can find it online. And there's two people in that crowd that I've actually hung out with a few times. So they had punkers like stage diving and stuff. So Fear, that is a band I find underrated in the whole realm of punk.
There are definitely different versions, like punk as when the word punk is used, you're right. There's Green Day, and I love Green Day, and you know that, and I went and saw them, and I really enjoyed that. But then I again, being the somewhat elder statesman here, I was around in the late 70s when there was, when it was the Pistols and it was the Dead Kennedys and it was those punk, which falls into your holy shit, I don't know if I'm going to come home from this concert, but if I do, it's going to be one of the best things I've ever been to. Not concert shows, right? Because they were in stinky, horrible little rooms filled with hundreds and hundreds of people, right? Yeah. There's that. For sure, there's that, definitely. And then there's Green Day, and there's Sum 41, and there's The Offspring, and there's even these guys will fall into, and I had never had a chance to go and see Rancid until I saw them when they opened for Green Day. And again, they're not 70s punk. They're not dangerous punk. They're pop-ish punk or whatever. They're kind of ska more than they are punk, I think, a little bit. It depends what you want to throw in there, and it depends from album to album. But again, this is another band that I think is somewhat underrated. When you talk about the other bands of the genre, the Green Days, the Offsprings, those types of bands, these guys get mentioned a little bit, but not as much as they should. They just, I don't know what it was, didn't click, didn't fit at the time, didn't have the right management, didn't get whatever, if radio play needed to be a thing or whatever. But again, these guys, I think, could have been bigger than they were. Do they care if they were bigger than they were? I don't know. I don't know if these bands care if they're bigger than they were, if they're happy with the lane they were in. And that's something that comes up to, not to refer back to it again, but that Tragically Hip documentary, they talk about everybody asking them about not making it in the States, and they give their opinion of what they think of that. And that's kind of cool to hear. But again, so these guys fall into that category of a band that gets, is part of a genre that is a lesser known, but equally as good and fantastic live. Even at, even a month ago in Minneapolis, they were great. I'm sure it would have been a completely different show to see them when this album came out than I saw. But man, it was really, really good. And then I'm going to do a quick twofer because these guys don't necessarily fall into that category, but a little bit as well. And again, a lot of people know Social Distortion, especially because of Rock Band and Guitar Hero and things like that. But this is one of my all-time favorite albums. This should have just been insanely big and played all over the place, and lots of songs off of it as well. Not just, a couple of songs. But again, I don't know if Mike Ness gives a shit, if he's happy with the way his band turned out and the number of albums he sold and the number of concerts he did and the venues that he played. I guess it's our perception more than anything, but this is a great album. But again, another band that I think a lot of people know, and those that know, and those that care to know. But if you were to say, hey, name me a big band out of California from the 90s, Social Distortion might not be high up on that list. Everclear, again, kind of fallen to the wayside now, unfortunately, but I saw them a while ago. They were really good. But again, just another band that Offspring has continued to be somewhat of a name, and they've done new albums as well. That helps. But there's just these guys and Rancid fall into the category of really good, and a lot of people love them. And whether they care or not, that more people know about them or not, but I think they're bands that people should check out. That maybe if you don't know them, you should know them, or at least give them a listen. So,
yeah, I saw Social Distortion in '92 opening for the Ramones.
Oh, really? Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Richard's saying he saw them at Red Rocks. That'd be pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Chilled Pint says, I saw Social Distortion last Saturday night. They were great, but the venue held them back.
in Edmonton, chilled? Is that where? Because I know they just finished Edmonton maybe the last couple of nights. I think they did 2 dates, and then they're in Winnipeg. No Saskatchewan, not Regina or Saskatoon. I don't know. Everybody just freaking skips over Saskatchewan, so I just got to go see them somewhere else.
Why not Moose Jaw?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Moose Jaw gets some decent shows. They've got about a 5,000 arena out there, and that's where Alice Cooper plays. He doesn't play in Regina. Alice Cooper plays out in Moose Jaw and fills the place and does well with it.
To the Americans watching, we're not fucking with you. There's actually a city called Moose Jaw.
There is. Yeah, there really is. Yeah. Yeah.
In a province called Saskatchewan. Shit, you know.
That's right.
Which also has another town called Cut Knife.
Right.
And Elbow and Eyebrow and Climax. And yeah, anyway.
There's a Climax in Michigan. There's also Hell.
There's an intercourse in Pennsylvania. But it's all Mennonites, so go figure that.
Yeah. A lot of vertical intercourse. Anyway.
Let's see here. They were in Edmonton. There you go. Darren, am I going to the Guelph Record Show? Yes, I'm going to the Guelph Record Show. I'm sure Mike will be there. I bought many things from Mike before he closed the store down. I'll be there, and so will Jeff from Speaker's Corner. So I'll probably stop by and see your friend Mike, of course. So okay, my turn.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Band I've talked about before. I don't get. Huge fan of Grace Potter and the Nocturnals. Sadly, not around anymore. They broke up after this album. And when I say broke up, Grace got an ego. And she figured because it was Grace Potter and the Nocturnals that people were there to see Grace Potter. And she's sadly mistaken because her solo stuff sucks compared to what she did with the Nocturnals. It is a cheap copy of what she did with. Yes, she was the songwriter, but this band together was lightning in a bottle. They were amazing. From Vermont, they like 70s rock flavored with a little bit of blues is how I would describe it. And they were incredible. Put on an amazing live show. I've seen them. I've met Grace, actually. They did 5 albums, I think, and this was the last one, The Lion, the Beast, the Beat. Just absolutely amazing. So this came out in 2012 was when they broke up. Well, I broke up in 2013, I guess. But back then, there wasn't anyone doing that sort of throwback rock and roll kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of like how the Black Crowes kind of do that throwback rock and roll. They sort of do too, kind of from a different angle, but it's that kind of thing. There wasn't a lot of that going on, but these guys toured all over the place, and they played small venues, and I saw them at the Danforth Music Hall in Toronto, which is like 1,000 people, maybe standing room only. Just absolutely incredible. Sad that they broke up. I mean, Grace still out there. She's not taking care of her voice. She sounds like shit now. Her solo albums are not great, but this band was incredible. Hard to find their records on vinyl now. There's only 2 of them plus a record store A1, but you can find anything by them. They were just absolutely amazing. Love them so much. So we lost Joe somehow. Maybe he'll rejoin us. Let's see here. Yeah, nothing exciting going on in the comments. We'll go around again. Daryl. Oh, here's Joe. Yeah. Joe's back. There he is.
I had a coughing fit. The stripper had a coughing fit. She said she couldn't go on with it, so I turned my mic off. Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go a little bit. We're gonna go a little bit 90s. With an alternative band that once again, when you're dealing with grunge and you're dealing with alternative and stuff like that, there's always going to be those bands that overshadow everyone else. You were talking about, with the Green Day and all that kind of stuff overshadowing what punk is and stuff like that. And I think that this one here, once again, brings me back to my high school days. I think it has one of the coolest art designs on a cover from the 90s. But I think that in recent days, the lead singer of this band has just become a complete fucking dickhead. And that's
How do you really feel?
live. The band,
yeah.
the band live and Throwing Copper. Ed Kowalczyk, I don't know what his problem's been with that band recently. He's just his ego's gone to his head. But this has some fantastic stuff. If I had the predecessor album to this, what's it called? Their Mental Jewelry.
Mhm.
That's the album that I would really like. But I don't know. I mean, not a lot of people talk about live. But Selling the Drama is a great song. All Over You is a great song. I Alone is a great song. The album that follows this, I think, was Secret Samadhi. Great album. And then all of a sudden, like so many 90s bands, you get to the year 2000, and then they just flush themselves down the toilet somehow. They're non-existent, really. But I think that they're an underrated 90s band that was saturated by alternative stuff.
Agreed.
I
Yep.
agree. 100%. 100%. Curtis, welcome, sir. Thanks for joining us. Joe, what do you got?
Nope, Trevor.
Trevor.
Have I complimented you on your hat, by the way? That's good hat work right there, my friend. Good job. Yeah, I like it.
That's the Liam Gallagher hat he's got going on there.
I've been going for the bucket hats as opposed to baseball caps, just something different.
You're just excited about the Oasis reunion. That's what it
I
is.
am. I'm wondering, like the memes have been going around. They're wondering if it's going to turn into Jane's Addiction. So,
As a giant Oasis fan, I hope not.
How many shows in was that? I'm not even sure what that was for Jane's Addiction. Was it 3?
I want to say it was like tail end.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good, I guess. Yeah.
But this one, I'm going to dedicate this to your old pal, Alex. Something that from one of his favorite labels. But this is Duran Jones and the Indications. This is a more modern thing that's undergraded. I discovered these guys by watching the television show High Fidelity when they tried to, like, not reboot it, but kind of make it.
They made a TV show out of that?
Yeah, it was on Hulu. It was around COVID time.
Was it any good?
It was okay. I mean, I love the movie High Fidelity.
Oh, who doesn't?
It's one of my favorites. And if you ever worked in a record store, you know those people.
Well, yeah, it was good. Zoe Kravitz, right? I think Zoe played. Yeah, it was a little different take on it, but it was the same material.
Yeah. So there was a song on there. It's not on this one. It's on the debut, which I actually have on my turntable right now. But I liked it, and I had to like do the Shazam to the TV. I'm like, what is this? Because I thought it was like some late 60s, early 70s soul thing. And turns out it's like these guys that were in like their mid 20s from college, and they put out, this is their second record, American Love Call. And it's so throwback, so good, just soulful R&B, not really funk, but it's very genuine sounding, and I love this band a whole lot. They get a third record, which they kind of went into late 70s, maybe a little early 80s kind of sound to it. But yeah, Duran Jones and the Indications, highly recommend checking them out if you want to get some what's kind of known as neo soul. So check it out.
Awesome.
Cool stuff.
Good one.
I like that High Fidelity. I was pissed when they didn't do the second season. It was because it was good, and she was good, and I mean, obviously they did that. I thought that they did the topic justice from the book and things like that, and yeah, I was really looking forward to a second season, and then nope. Let's make good movie. Let's make good TV, and then not make more of it.
There you go.
There you go. Gold mine. All right. Joe.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So this gentleman that I'm going to do next, because we got 2 more rounds in us, right? I'll save a couple. This one is going to be a great songwriter that has written tons of songs, and tons of songs that he's written, but he himself has not necessarily gotten the cred I don't think that he deserves. And he's a great singer, and he's a great guitar player, and he's a great songwriter, and that is Mr. John Hyatt. So, again, arguably underrated. And I guess it's his choice that he has given his songs to other artists. Like, here, Bonnie, have this song. It's a great song, and she's done a fantastic job with it. The one that I'm surprised nobody has covered is Perfectly Good Guitar, which is not on this album, but that's one of my favorite John Hyatt songs. And that's not one that's ever been covered, but, he's just done a ton of great stuff. And again, I think a lot of people would probably know, and somewhat preaching to maybe the choir of those that do know. But in the grand scheme of things, I think if you said John Hyatt, I don't know if a lot of people would necessarily know that name, but if you told them some of the songs that he's written, and then his versions are equally as good, and in some cases maybe a little better, but Angel Eyes by Jeff Healey, that was John Hyatt. And, you can kind of go on and on and on. There's lots of good stuff. Excuse me. And he's got 5 or 6 or 8 albums, and they're all really good. It's just, again, arguably underrated, not necessarily underrated, but under the radar, I'll put it on this one, is a guy that probably more people should know, but don't necessarily. I don't think. Maybe they do, but I don't think they do. And I'm going over here to cough. Discuss amongst yourselves.
All right.
I think speaking of underrated bands that he just talked about, the Jeff Healey band. You don't hear anybody talking about Jeff Healey. He was fantastic.
Yeah, I think that was unfortunately because we didn't get enough of Jeff Healey. We deserved so much more, and then he passed away, unfortunately. But you're right, man. They were killer live. They were great live and good songs. I mean, Angel Eyes obviously was not written by him, but his version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps is fantastic. And to see that, like I said, when he played live was great. So, yeah.
Okay, my turn, I think. Yes.
Yep.
My turn. All right. Okay. There you go. This right. This is a guy that people know, but I don't think anyone has bothered really to listen to what he's done post the band that made him famous. Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. Mm-hmm. Mike Campbell, obviously, lead guitar player for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. After Tom died, yes, he became a member of Fleetwood Mac to replace Lindsey Buckingham. But his band, the Dirty Knobs, put out 3 albums. So this is the second one, External Combustion. This is the first one called Reckless Abandon. And then this is the one that just came out like a month ago called Vagabonds, Virgins, and Misfits. And fantastic, all 3 of them. So, I mean, he kind of has that Petty-esque sort of vocal. I mean, he's got that Gainesville, Florida drawl, right? So, just like Tom, they sound similar, but doesn't sound like Tom. He can if he wants to, but just a great sort of. You hear the Heartbreakers influence, but then you also hear sort of like some bluesy kind of stuff, and you hear some garage rock creeping in there, and it's different enough from the Heartbreakers to not be the Heartbreakers, which is good. It's just great, honest, modern guitar rock and roll that I don't know that a lot of people really give a shit about, but if you like that Heartbreaker sound, I hate to say it, but this is worth all 3 of these. And in fact, I actually think that the newest one is probably the best of the 3, but you enjoy them all immensely. So if you like yourself some Mike Campbell or some Tom Petty, I would check out the Dirty Knobs.
Good choice.
Right on.
Couple comments here. Music in the House. I love the song on John Hyatt's album Stolen Moments called Through Your Hands, the duet with Karen Parris from the Innocence Mission. You know that one, Joe?
Yeah, there's like I said, there's so much good John Hyatt music, and again, those that are familiar with them, for me to say he's underrated, I clarified by saying he's under the radar, I guess, for more people than he should be. But yeah, never a bad album. He's one of those guys that the whole albums are solid all the way through. If you like him because he doesn't stray very far, but it's always entertaining.
Richard says he's got the first Knobs album. If you've got the first one, I mean, each album got better and better, and the third one is just, it's outstanding. It really is. So. All right, we still got some time, so you want to go around again? You guys got some more to show?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Daryl.
All right. So, Joe talked about this one a couple weeks ago, and actually, for me, when we came up with this topic, this was the second album I thought of. So I did the Cars one first because that's the one that was automatic, but this was the second one. So we had talked about this, and I think the issue with this, I didn't want to talk too much about 80s bands because I mean, some 80s bands are just weird. But this one here, I mean, they did have some hits, but I think because they were more of a club band, they went under the radar. Like everybody knows them. But then after this album, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, I don't know if, whatever happened to these guys, right? I mean, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. It's a cool name for a band anyway. And I mean, there's some cool tracks on here, Relax and the title track, plus, what is it, Two Tribes? I think it is.
Two Tribes was the other single. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
hit, whatever.
I think that they flew under the radar because there wasn't a lot of club bands per se, but they focused their main gigs in clubs. I don't know if they did the whole, they weren't doing the arena scene or anything like that. It was more of an MTV type thing. And then once the fame and fortune of this album kind of went away, they kind of became lesser known. They went the wayside.
I think they did more
singles
than albums.
Yeah. But I do think that there is something to be said about them. I mean, they got some really good music that I think needs to be more appreciated. That album in particular, and that one's a double album. But you can get that one pretty cheap. It's not expensive for a double.
No, and it's solid all the way through. It's good. Like if you like the songs, you'll like the rest of it. But it's also pretty good, and it's a concept album, which I still have got to listen to it a couple more times to pick up on the concept. I know that it's supposed to be a concept album anyway, but it's very well produced. It sounds really good.
It flows really well too. Like between the tracks, it's not like usually the tracks don't stop. They just kind of flow.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's where the concept part comes in, is the way that you said it's produced. It just flows.
Yeah. And I think if you bring up Richard's comment, I think back to yours, Daryl, is that was possibly their not their downfall, but their holdback a little bit, right? Like there were other artists that it not worked for them, but that it didn't matter, right? The Eltons, George Michael, things like that. But I think it was more the S&M version that Frankie portrayed, right? I think a little bit.
Well, and the fact that we now know kind of what Relax, that song, is even about. Yeah. I mean, it might not have been to everybody's taste, right?
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Trevor? You were going to say.
I was going to say they're. I think especially, being from Middle America, the flamboyancy probably didn't really sink in too well for most.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Everyone I knew didn't care, but yeah, like it's such a great band. I mean, I just got the greatest hits thing, which is mostly just the singles, and I mean everything's just top notch. I didn't really realize how many covers they did. as singles. I mean, they got War, Ferry Across the Mersey. What's another one? Born to Run.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. They might still be out there doing something. I know I saw something more recent-ish as down some YouTube, rabbit hole one night or whatever, and eventually got to them on the Brit Awards from X amount of years ago or something. But yeah, it's a great album, and you're right. I think a lot of people wrote it off, unfortunately, because of the gay part of it. I think that just not their downfall. That's not the right way to put it, but I think that held it back from being more than it was. But
at the time too.
At the time, sure, yeah, oh, definitely of its time, definitely, for sure.
And if it was to happen now, no one would care.
Whatever. That's what they were doing was tame compared to what the hell's going on now, right? So kind of. But
King of the VC says, I'm out. Good job, boys. See you next week. Thank you for joining us. As always, we appreciate it. Trevor, you're up next, right?
Yeah,
I
man,
lose track.
very metal centric here.
It's all good, man.
What are we gonna do? Well, okay. Everyone knows the big four. Well, this being like the top of the notch of the big four, the other three being Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer. And one that gets just underneath it if they were to say, well, what if there was a big five, or if one of the bands had to be replaced. These guys were definitely in the forefront. They were right there at the birth of the whole thrash metal thing, and we're going to go with Exodus.
Yeah,
from the Bay Area, their debut, Bonded by Blood. The thing is, with this album, it was recorded in 1984, but due to logistics, it didn't come out till a year later. So they were behind the pack. And it's just the riffage on these albums. Well, this one actually only is the first singer, Paul Bailoff, and this is the only album he's on, and he's revered, even though he wasn't the greatest singer in the world, but he had the attitude. Yeah, these guys, they get name checked a lot, but I don't think a lot of people really get into them. They probably got as high as maybe a theater band. They never really made it huge, but that's okay with them. They don't need the accolades of having the big arena thing, and they do well for themselves, and they will go down as legends. Absolutely. So, and actually, one of the founding members, Kirk Hammett of Metallica, formed this band. He started it. So
awesome.
Right on.
Good. Joe.
Okay, I'm going rapid fire. What the hell? Because if I pull them out, I got to show them. It's kind of like in high school. If I pulled it out, I had to show it.
I was gonna go there, but I decided not to.
Danko Jones. We've talked about him. I know you guys like this guy. And if you like Danko Jones one song, you will like all of Danko Jones' songs, because he admittedly said, I don't change my shit. It is what it is. And these are the songs that I do. And if you like them, you like them. This is the new one, and this is really good album. Really good, actually. I like this new one. But fantastic in concert, and just good stuff. Danko Jones, Canadian boy.
I got to stop you right there.
Okay.
I know, or I shouldn't say I know. I've met on more than one occasion Rich Knox, who's the drummer.
Yeah.
Because he used to play for my buddy, Dustin Bentel, used to be his drummer.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
I've met Rich probably a dozen times. He wouldn't remember me, but I've met him probably a dozen times.
Yeah. But that's the guy that you guys got to admit, I think, or agree that that's a guy that more people need to know. It's just good.
Absolutely.
It's just good rock and roll. Yeah. It's just great stuff. Nashville Pussy. Goes back to my Four Horsemen days and stuff, or not Four Horsemen days, but Four.
Isn't
Horsemen.
any pussy good though?
Yes, but
It's not be from Nashville.
In Nashville, well, Nashville's just the place to be these days, so that's why. But you're right, it is. Again,
I'm referring to cats. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, if you look up greasy rock and roll, there's a picture of these guys, right?
Yeah.
They've changed the guitar player, the girl whose name escapes me right now. Trevor, do you know? I can't remember her name. She's the only one that's different, I think, right? It's been the same or mostly the same from the start. So
no, it's the bass player they changed out.
oh, okay. Yeah. And this is 10 years of Pussy as well. So if you can get 10 good years of Pussy on a double album, you're doing okay. But there's a band, if you don't know them, look them up. Great female guitar players, put on a great live show from what I understand. I've never seen them. But again, if you were to put them in context, if you took the Black Crowes and made them a lot sleazier, and
Yes.
had a girl out front playing guitar, maybe, and then really tongue-in-cheek lyrics as well. So
Thanks for getting this video demonetized, by the way, Joe. Appreciate that.
okay, well, I'm just going to lower the bar then with some Steel Panther.
Boy,
Steel Panther used to be a cover band and a parody of themselves, but right now they're a pretty decent band actually for what they play and what they do. Satchel is a great guitar player for what he plays guitar, and Michael Starr is a great singer and sticks it in you on drums is good. Lexi's not there anymore, but for what they are, they're a good band, and again, not necessarily underrated, but I think a lot of people write them off, but they're a pretty damn good band. And then the one that my wife suggested, and this will be my last one of my rapid fire, is the Bee Gees, and not the Bee Gees of the disco era, but everything off this album, which is the greatest hits of kind of 1970s and before. They equaled, I think, a lot of the bands of their time in their songwriting and their singing and their music and everything. So underrated for the time frame before the disco stuff. Now, the disco stuff, you take or you leave, and you appreciate it for what it is. But everything on this original album, or this greatest hits part of me of the earlier music, it goes under the radar and should not be written off if you write them off for the fact that they were a massive disco band. If you do that, if you don't do that, great. But if you do that, you have to give that earlier stuff its due and its listen, because it's really, really good stuff. It's a band that everybody, when I say I like, go, no, you don't. Yeah, I do. I appreciate the disco stuff, but I really, really like that earlier Bee Gees stuff. Yes, we do have Horizons. We have the earlier stuff. I just pulled out that greatest hits because, everything on there is great. And it's a lot of songs that I think don't get the play that they deserve if airplay is a thing that matters. But again, there's a lot of songs that you'd hear it and go, oh man, I forgot about that song. Oh yeah, I forgot about that song. That's a very good early 70s gold, 60s, late 60s songs. So there you go.
all
That's
right.
my rapid fire.
I'm going to do rapid fire as well. A great rock band out of LA called Dirty Honey. They're actually playing 20 minutes away from my house this exact moment as we speak, and I should be at the show, but I'm not. Anyway, this is their first album, and I'm thankful enough to have an autographed copy. They just put out a second album. Again, these are one of those, I'll call it a throwback rock band. We mentioned the Black Crowes several times. This kind of like, don't sound like the Black Crowes, but it's the same kind of throwback to like good, honest, dirty rock and roll from, the mid 70s. And these guys are phenomenal. Yeah. So underrated as hell, relatively new on the scene. I have not heard the second album yet. And I kick myself for not buying tickets to go to the show tonight. It's what it is. We've done a couple of these tonight where we've talked about underrated albums by bands that are big. And this is a band, you either love them or you hate them, and I love them. And I know Trevor does too because he's wearing a bucket hat. Oasis. Everyone knows the first two albums, right? Definitely maybe in What Story, Morning Glory, or Monsters of the 90s. And even Be Here Now, while it was kind of a bloated overproduction, it's still held with a fair amount of reverence. then the latter part of their catalog, is kind of, let's be honest, standing on the shoulders of giants sucks. It's horrible. And I think Heathen Chemistry is boring. And I think Dig Out Your Soul kind of sucks. But this album, which was their second last, which came out in 2000 and I don't know, 6, 7, I don't know. It's the second last album. This is called Don't Believe the Truth. Really good. Kind of a, no one listens to their later discography, but this kind of, it sort of has the feel of the early stuff. There was one sort of single out here called Lila, but I really love this. And Noel actually relinquished some of the reins and let some of the other folks in the band write some songs, and that could either work or not work. And in this case, it did. And this is also the only album with Zach Starkey as the drummer, Ringo Starr's son, who was rumored to be the drummer for the reunion tour next year. Let's hope that happens. So,
Cool.
As much as their later catalog, is not that great, if you like the first two albums, you'll probably like this one. So, two more real quick. Oh, I said I wasn't going to show another Canadian band that no one gives a shit. But this is a Canadian band that no one gives a shit. But Mazzy talks about them all the time. So I'm going to talk about it because I've seen them way more times than Mazzy has. And they're a hometown band for me. This incredible band from Toronto called the Sadies. They're strange is the best way to put it. They started off as kind of like alt country, kind of like Uncle Tupelo, but a little more kind of psychedelic country. But they put on a hell of a rock show. They can play blues. They can play absolutely everything. I can't really describe what they sound like. All I can say is just go check them out on YouTube. Yes, Vagina's pointing out they did an album with my favorite singer. They've done a lot of albums with a lot of people. They did two albums with Nico Case, but the one that Vagina's referring to is they did an album with Gord Downie from the Sadies, and I don't own it because I don't like Gord Downie. But amazing band. They were a four-piece. Dallas and Travis Good, two brothers, were the founders. But unfortunately, Travis Good died last year, unexpectedly, of a heart condition that they didn't know that he had. I have met them many times, and actually Travis has signed this copy. They have this incredible live album that if you can find it, it's called The Sadies in Concert Volume 1. It's kind of like their version of The Last Waltz almost. It's absolutely amazing. So the Sadies, if you like sort of rock, cosmic cowboy, psychedelic country, blues, they're amazing. And the last one, and Joe has talked about this before, in terms of an artist that everybody knows, but her albums are always in the record store and they always cost less than $5, and he can't figure out why that is. And that's Linda Ronstadt. I mean, probably my favorite female singer. Everyone knows who she is, but nobody owns any Linda Ronstadt albums. And she has the most powerful voice, and she's incredible. And yeah, a lot of her songs are covers. But man, I just don't understand why her albums are always in flea markets and they cost next to nothing and nobody seems to want them. I didn't really care about her stuff from like the early 80s onwards, but that stuff she did, first couple albums with the Stone Ponies, and then her stuff all through the 70s till about, 82, 83. Absolutely amazing stuff. So,
and I think it was her birthday yesterday, day before, I think. 80.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so. 84. Unfortunately, she's going to be one of those artists that's going to pass away, and everybody's going to go, oh man, I love Linda Ronstadt. Or all of a sudden they're going to go, oh, I love Linda Ronstadt, or they're going to recognize her or realize it or something. Maybe not, but I mean, yeah.
She did do some stuff that was kind of, I don't want to say crap, but she did some stuff that was not interesting, right? I mean, she did that kind of Mexican stuff, which if, you're into Spanish music, cool. And then she did, that country album with Dolly Parton and Emmylou Harris. Boring, unless you're into country. I mean, she did some stuff that wasn't great, but when she was in her prime in the 70s, man, incredible.
Well, there was one 80s song I liked from that hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
it's something about like 82, something like
She
that.
rips on that song, especially towards the end. Hey,
Yeah.
talk about grit.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And although you're not a country fan, that trio album with her, Dolly Parton, and Emmylou Harris, that's 3 pretty damn good voices. So,
Amazing. And
which I know
listen,
you're not saying, but yeah,
I heard that 1,000 times when I was a kid, and that's maybe why
Yeah.
I hate it. So,
maybe.
yeah, Dan, she did all right. I'm not making the point that she didn't do all right. She's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for God's sakes. What I'm saying is it's kind of a crime that you can find. I mean, maybe it's a good thing, but no one seems to own her albums, and they always seem to cost, $2, $3. That's the point I'm trying to make. Underappreciated.
She needs that TikTok video like Fleetwood Mac had, where all the younger generation all of a sudden went, "Holy shit, this Fleetwood Mac's pretty good."
Right.
I think maybe that's the factor that
Maybe.
we're looking for there, or something, where it's like, we know this group knows and this group knows, but there should be another group that knows about her.
Yep. Agreed. Chance, you're late to the party, man, but better late than never. Dan's saying her cover of When Will I Be Loved is almost as great as the Everly Brothers. I mean, the majority of her hits were all covers. I don't think she wrote anything. So,
Sure.
I mean, my favorite song of all time is Tumbling Dice, which is a Rolling Stones cover, and it's awesome. Love it. So,
Yep.
there we go, guys. We're kind of at the 2-hour mark, so we'll do what we always do. You want to go around the horn and say what you want about your channel, promote if there's something you got to promote, something you want to talk about, something you did, something you got coming up. Since Trevor was our guest of honor, what's cooking, man?
Channel wise, I feel like I'm dead in the water, but something I thought about, I was again going through social media and I saw one of my buddies. Well, it's not his band. He's just the drummer for this legendary hardcore band called Negative Approach. They're going to be playing here next month. And I'm like, oh, cool. And it's on a Friday. Then I realize it's during the week that my dad is going to be here visiting. And I'm thinking, maybe I should take my dad to see a hardcore show.
Why not?
We're 75 years old. And I just want, because
You might kill the man, though.
no, it will be in the back, but I just I want to show you what I do. And then also, and I don't know if he'll see it or not, but you guys know Harry's Music Room?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, he does an open mic, and we're in the same town. So I'm going to take my dad to his open mic night, and he'll really enjoy that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, just trying to find things to do while he's here because I just don't want to just hang out here at the house. We're gonna do little day trips and stuff. But get some music involved somehow.
Nice.
Awesome. That's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Joe, I guess just record store stuff.
Yeah, record store stuff. We had, like I said, we were open on Saturday. We had a pretty good day. I put out about 250 new used items, and a whole bunch of that went. But there's a bunch that didn't. So I'm going to do another one of my 12 things that shouldn't be in the store anymore videos and do that. And just that. And just keeping busy with the store. I've got football this weekend, which nobody gives a rat's ass about, but I've got football this weekend again. So,
Well,
No.
I'm looking forward to Monday.
yeah. And other than that, and I will only say it one more time, if you are a fan of the hip, watch the documentary. If you're not, give one episode a shot just for me, and then you can tell me I'm full of shit later if you didn't enjoy any of it.
What platform is that on?
Well, it's on Prime here, but Prime Canada, so I'm not sure where you'll be able to find
Well,
it.
I saw the preview, and I just couldn't remember which place. But yeah,
I guess if it's on Prime, it's probably down there too. Because again, spoiler alert, they did okay in the state. But
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Detroit, we're huge on Canadian artists.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I remember the Tea Party actually getting airplay,
Yeah.
you know, in Detroit. I don't know elsewhere if it did, but yeah, Tragically Hip. I think they even played the Palace, which is like a 20,000 seat arena. So yeah,
Yeah.
very familiar.
It's worth it. It's worth it. I think so.
What about you, Daryl? What's cooking?
Probably not a whole lot. I didn't put in much content for my channel this week. Just work and every day coming home from teaching high school kids every day. It's just I'm beat by the time I get home.
I'm sure.
I want to try to do my compare the 3 Bruce Hornsby and the Range albums. That's no secret. I love those guys. I could have put them on this show, but I think 3 weeks in a row is a little overkill with that. But I'd like to try to get a couple videos out this weekend. I can't guarantee it, but just try to spin some records. And yeah, I mean, not a lot goes up in Moosonee. You know, the entertainment of the day is literally cooking food with high school students, and then coming home, spending time with the wife and kids, and then going to bed again. Right? It's almost a cycle. I wish I lived in a place where I could just go for a drive, and I don't know, not even go to the mall. I hate shopping malls, but just go somewhere, you know. But
Fair enough.
That's the plan. I want to try to get a video out this weekend and maybe get caught up on some other channels and their videos.
Nice. Well, as for myself, the video that I did on Sunday, just this past Sunday, was my thoughts on the Beatles' Capitol releases. And man, that thing took off like a rocket.
Nice.
1,500 people watched it in less than 2 days. And I was like, holy shit.
Nice.
And I was intrigued at the comments because it's clear that a lot of people didn't watch past the first minute. Because while I said I'm taking a pass on these, and then a lot of people shit on me in the comments, what they didn't bother to stick around to hear me say is I'm glad they're re-released because, you know, Beatlemania in the States in 1964 was one of the reasons that the band still has the longevity that they do today because they were such a success in the US. So for fans that grew up on, you know, Meet the Beatles and the Beatles' second album and, you know, those US releases, they don't want, I can understand why the UK releases is not what you grew up on. So I'm thrilled that those are coming out. For me, I'm not buying them. I have OG pressings, and that's good enough. I never listen to them. But a lot of people are like, oh, you know what you're talking about. I go, did you watch the rest of the fucking video? Clearly not. But anyway.
I did watch it. Now, did you say that, I know it's been out there, that it's actually better to buy them individually? They're going to be releasing them individually.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say that, but I think it is because it's a lot more to buy it in the box. You buy it in the box, you get that 2 LP Beatles story, which is just like an interview thing.
Right.
And that only comes in the box. You can't buy that individually.
Right.
Yeah. But nobody listens to that.
Right.
So
Well,
if you just want the albums, you're probably better to buy them individually.
Yeah, because someone put up, it was like, you know, in market retail price, it's like you're paying an extra
$120.
Yeah, with just for that 2 LP that you might listen to once every 10 years, and then a box.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I'm listen, and I even put a screenshot from Amazon. In Canada, that box is like $460.
Right.
And I'm going, I'm not spending $460. I don't care if it's remastered. I've listened to them a few times. I like the UK ones. So I'll stick with my OGs. I'm not dropping the coin. Not $500 ain't happening, but right. I'm thrilled that it's out. So anyway, that video is quite interesting. Surprised that it took off as it did. Also quite surprised how many people didn't watch beyond the first minute. And it's like, you know, you're going to take me to task in the comments. Well, maybe you should have listened to what I actually said.
Right.
Nonetheless, I'm thankful that people watched it. So what I have coming up this week, I'm going to do a video. I mentioned I ordered a few products from Vinyl Storage Solutions that I hadn't used before, like their box set sleeves. So I'm going to do a video about those. Northern 10 is a discount code if you want to order them from Vinyl Storage Solutions. Just saying. And then Joe and I are going to record something tentatively tomorrow, right, Joe?
Yep, I'm good for tomorrow still. Yep.
Do you want to tell folks what it is or keep it a surprise?
Yeah, no, we can talk about it if you
All
want.
right.
I think it'll be interesting, or it'll be interesting to some.
So Joe and I are going to have a discussion. My favorite band is the Beatles, and Joe's favorite band is
Kiss.
So
or at
we're
least
gonna-
that's where we're going with this.
that's
right?
where we're going with it.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a discussion. I'm calling it the Beatles versus Kiss, but that's not what it is. We're both talking about why those bands mean so much to each of us and our experiences of those bands sort of being the soundtrack to our lives, and maybe stories about having seen them live, or some what are our what's our most prized record of that. Just we're gonna wherever the river shall take us in the discussion about our love of each of those bands, because I think we're both equally passionate about those acts. So I think it might be an interesting discussion. So
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I don't know if you don't have to sway me to the Beatles, and I'm not going to try and sway you to Kiss. I don't think. Maybe
I
I'll
may
try.
get there. I may get there at some point.
I got to get you to one, maybe two albums at least. I will get you.
And I think that'll
Go
probably come up where I'll be like, and I think it's one of the, in our preliminary, chat that you and I had, what's a jumping off point for somebody. So, that may come up in the conversation where I'll be like, what is it about this band that made you love them? And, what is it that might draw other folks in? So we'll see where that takes us, but I'm looking forward to it. It should be an interesting discussion.
So tune in next Wednesday to see if I got Rob to listen to one Kiss album and to watch one episode of the Tragically Hip documentary. I have my work cut out for me, I think. But
there you go. Geez.
Yeah.
And I got to squeeze in a record show this weekend, so it's going to be a busy week.
Right on.
Good Lord. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll leave it at that. Thank you, Trevor, for being our guest this week. It was a pleasure, man.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Always watch you guys, and it's like hanging out with old friends.
Well, awesome, man. You're welcome back. If you want to do this again sometime, we try to feature a different guest every few weeks. So, if you want to do it again sometime, I'll send you an invite down the road.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. Daryl, Joe, a pleasure as always, gentlemen. And
Thank you.
Always.
thank you to everyone in the comments for spending a couple hours with us this evening. We appreciate you joining us and listening to us ramble like idiots that actually think we know what we're talking about. So it's always fun. Cheers, everybody. We will see you next Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Will do.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
easy.